Hey guys, Dr. Caffery here. Today I want to talk to you about premenstrual syndrome and inflammation. So last time we discussed premenstrual syndrome and chronic stress and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, but today I want to elaborate a bit on inflammation and its role in progesterone synthesis and activity. So we established last time that having inadequate progesterone production is oftentimes a major contributor to premenstrual syndrome. So when you have inflammation, that can affect the responsiveness of your progesterone receptor sites, meaning the receptors that the progesterone hormone has to bind to aren't as responsive. They don't listen to it as well. Or it can also affect the communication or the signaling from the master gland, the pituitary, down to the ovaries, affecting adequate or proper progesterone production. It can also have an influence on estrogen production as well. So it's important for having low inflammation to have proper signaling between estrogen and progesterone. So what causes inflammation? Well, first it's important to recognize, do you have inflammation? Well, a lot of people have low-grade inflammation and they don't necessarily know it because they don't really have any symptoms of it. When it's low-grade, you may not have any symptom expression. If it reaches a certain point, you might start to have general inflammatory symptoms, and these can be things like fatigue and malaise, just not feeling well. Maybe you have brain fog. Maybe you have some aches and pains and maybe low mood, or maybe you're irritable. These can all be symptoms of just general inflammation. It's been termed sickness behavior because people get this when they have some kind of overt sickness or illness like a viral infection, but you can also manifest this from just low-grade chronic inflammation to a lesser degree. You'll also see some individuals that have autoimmune disorders that can have relapsing remitting bouts of this sickness behavior where inflammation swings up and then swings back down. So what causes this inflammation? Well, there's a number of contributors. I'm just going to discuss some of the more common things I see. So blood sugar disorders are a big thing. So a very common one is insulin resistance. This can give you sleepiness after you eat. This can give you cravings for sweets. This is what can ultimately lead to type 2 diabetes, but a lot of times individuals may have prediabetes or even early insulin resistance contributing to inflammation in their bodies. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies, so like vitamin D deficiency is a common one. Vitamin D has anti-inflammatory effects. Magnesium deficiencies, that's another common mineral deficiency that has anti-inflammatory effects. Chronic stress can sometimes lead to a reduction in our stress hormone called cortisol, and cortisol is an anti-inflammatory hormone. Not getting adequate sleep, that's a big one. There's research that shows if you don't get at least 7 hours of sleep, then that can start to set up this inflammatory state, this pro-inflammatory state in your body. Not getting enough movement, enough physical exercise, that's an important thing in keeping inflammation down. Having sensitivities to foods, which is something that is fairly common. There's food allergies and then there's food sensitivities. Most people are aware if they have a food allergy, but food sensitivities is a different type of immune response. It's a delayed immune hypersensitivity, and this is something that is more common than a food allergy. Having leakiness in your gut, intestinal permeability, that's something that can cause inflammation. Having bacterial imbalance in your gut, dysbiosis, that's something that can cause inflammation. So these are all common contributors to inflammation, low-grade inflammation that can in turn affect progesterone signaling and progesterone receptor site responsiveness. So it's really individual, finding the root of your inflammation and addressing those root causes. That's what's going to give you the most benefits. But I'll say a good starting point for a lot of people are getting enough sleep, getting adequate exercise, or at least basic movement stimulation on a consistent basis, and eating a good diet, especially an anti-inflammatory diet, making sure you have adequate amounts of your anti-inflammatory omega-3 fats, making sure you don't overconsume carbohydrates and or sugar, identifying sensitivities you might have to foods. That can be accomplished with an elimination diet. Those are good starting points for most people. So keep these things in mind when you're thinking of premenstrual syndrome. If you're suffering from these types of problems, it's important to find and treat the source of your inflammation and lead these healthy lifestyle or make these healthy lifestyle changes to move in the right direction with those problems. Thank you so much for listening, guys. That's all I have for today.